ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिनि व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Om Shanti 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 Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat. So we were discussing in the previous class what happens and what kind of transformation a person who is established in the Parama Shiva Tattva experiences, where does he reach, and what kind of truth he encounters, what he meets, what he experiences, what he gets. So we were doing the verse number 29, and I was telling you that there is a bit of an alternative interpretation which Kshemaraja in his Siva Sutra Vimarshini ignores. Yo vivasto jnahetuscha. So this person who is established, Dhanam Atmagyanam, what does he give us? He gives Atmagyana, he gives self-realization by his sheer presence. And this communication of the truth we have already discussed yesterday can happen in two ways. One is by sort of exposition of the intention behind certain sentences in the text, the symbolic value, what is not explicitly mentioned. The acharyas, the Guru Parampara, enable us to reach the intended truth which is being communicated through sentences. Sutras are very brief, very difficult to make sense without somebody commenting on it. So that is one way as to how the Guru or the Acharya helps us, how he enables us to sort of access the truth and then realize it. Then there is another aspect that we were also discussing, that the self-realized souls, the self-realized gurus who are already there in the Siva Bhava, they need not necessarily go through all the details to be able to convey you the truth of the text. One is conveying you the truth of the text. Now, the good example that can come to your mind is that when you apply for a job and you are going there and you're meeting somebody and he tells you, okay, this is the appointment letter, these are terms and conditions, you have to meet the HR, and there's a long tail. There's a long tail that you have to sort of deal with to be able to get your appointment letter, and then you are in your job, they have to give you a posting and all that. Imagine you know the owner, and the owner sees you and he says, okay, you come and join tomorrow, this is the job, you report to me in my office. The HR process may not have been completed. There may not be anything, and yet you exercise great amount of power by virtue of having been communicated by the master of that business universe, who is the owner of that business, that you are working for him and you are very close to him. Then absolutely nothing matters. You have everything, nothing matters. Nothing is going to trouble you. Similarly, these are two kinds of transmissions or two kinds of transformative communication or two kinds of transformative relationship between the Acharya, the Guru, and the Acharya, the Guru, and the student. Okay? So that is what he is trying to say, that there are two kinds of gurus. Some people can directly transform you, give you the benefit of that self-knowledge without having you to pass through the lexiconic understanding of the truth. Uska arth ye hai, this is what you need to do. What we are doing right now, we are doing a satsang. We are trying to access what are the hidden truths in the text, and it's very important. Because in the Vedantic tradition, in our Indian knowledge system, this is what is called embedded pedagogy. I mean, it's a holistic, integral pedagogy where you are not only learning the meaning of a text, but you are also learning what it means to you and how it can help you transform yourself and your life. But there is this veto power of the Guru that he can directly transform his energy and his wisdom. And there are a lot of stories like that. And we have discussed that yesterday. I'll not like to revisit those details, like how Ramana Maharshi could look into a person's eyes and can do Saktipata. And we have also discussed about how Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahansa could just touch you and could give you some energies. And in Kundalini also there is this whole idea of Saktipata, how certain transformation, kind of an act of transformation that's kind of enacted to make you jump from one level to the other. These are a little controversial because this particular truth has been exploited by a lot of gurus. But then we have to look at what is the truth behind it. And that is what he is mentioning, that Dhanam Atmagyanam. And in the commentary, Yo Vipasto Gyahetuscha, Yaha Avipastaha. Avipastaha, Avin is Pashu, Avipastaha. He is the kind of shepherd who's realized, and the interpretation of it has been made by Kshemaraja. What distinguishes us from a Jivanamukta? What distinguishes us from a person who is established in the Siva Bhava? He, through his long commentary, explains, why are you in bondage? You are in bondage because these Sakti Matrikas, the Sakti Chakras, and the Adhishtatri Devatas, they are like mothers controlling you, and you are like an animal. They are like your guardians. So these energies are kind of dealing with you because you are at a low level of your energy. The same mother gives a lot of freedom to the boy she has or the daughter she has, who is very disciplined and insightful, and he or she knows how to move forward in life. The mother allows that boy or girl to go to the library on holidays. She doesn't have any problem, and she keeps controlling the other child who is indisciplined and who doesn't know. She doesn't rely on him. Same way, this Sakti Chakra, the person who has pierced through this, he goes to that Shiva Bhava. He pierces through these binding energies. He transcends them. It doesn't trouble him. You are past the threshold, right? So, you must have seen that in the different kind of wildlife channels on the television. Yeah, so how these sardines kind of move in millions in a group, and then they have to jump up the stream of water to go to the upper area from down area. It's unimaginable. But they do that jump, and there's a waterfall. They go up and they move in another direction. They go there. Some succeed, some don't succeed. The one who succeeds survives. The one who doesn't succeed, of course, gets eliminated. That is the process of natural selection. There is a spiritual process of selection. And that spiritual process of selection presumes that those who do not know how to pierce through the Sakti chakras, they remain bonded. Those who are able to overcome, go through it, they get liberation, they become masters. Yo Bhavasto Gyahetusha. And they, with their Jnana Shakti, the power of wisdom, can transform others. So, this particular thing, Jnanam, Atma Jnanam, has to be sort of connected with the verse number 29. And also the 30th, we will connect with it, 30th and 31. Yo Vipasto Gyahetusha. So, Pasumatra Varga Maheshwaradi Chakre, Prabhutvena Stita Yaha. So you have these Varnamatrikas in the Sakti Chakra. Each Varga is kind of a Sakti Chakra, and there is Adhishratri Devata. Prabhutvena Stitaha, but he's controlling it because he has gone beyond it. Saha Jnana Sakti Hetuhu, and he is the cause of Jnana Sakti. He's already inhering there. Upadeshan, the person who deserves to be addressed. Upadesha. Upadesha. Okay, Upadishta is the one who has been advised. Upadesha is the one who has to be advised. Upadeshan Jnana Saktya Bodhitum Kshamaha. That sort of a person who has transcended the limitations of the Sakti Chakra is in a position to, in a transformative way, communicate the truth and the power of liberation, the whole secret, to the guy who's Upadesha. Upadesha, why is he having this word there? Everybody doesn't deserve to be liberated. If you go anything and there's a project and you want to participate in it, the professor looks at you and finds out what are your intellectual capacities and what is your temperament and how reliable you are, then he picks you up to be part of that new project group. Similarly, the guru decides who deserves to be communicated this truth. Upadeshan bodhitum kshama. And if he finds there is a adhikari, somebody who is yogya purusha, who has the capacity to internalize and transform his life, to, to him or her, he gives out this communication about the secret. In this whole occult science, he gives him that secret. Cha Shabda Yarthe. So this particular he mentioned Jnana Hetu Sha. He's mentioning that Cha Shabda. Why is it mentioned? That both the things are kind of interlinked. Now, we would basically, we have already understood it more or less. Kshemaraja also says it. I just dealt with what Bhattakalata says. But we would be looking at a certain rejection of an alternative interpretation made by some scholars, by Kshemaraja, in the Siva Sutra Vimarshini. There is no need for any hair splitting, but we would be refusing one interpretation in line with Kshemaraja. It's a little academic, but let's do it because we want to have a comprehensive understanding of this sutra. There, he's saying this. Anyetu, that means other people. We have already done the other guys. Avim Pashun Pati iti avipam kavargadishu maheshwaradyaha pashumataraha. That is the verse number in the 19. We have already dealt with it. Iti avihita drusha maheshwaradi sakti chakram yatra tishtati vidita so mahatmyatvat prabhutvena yaha Pratapati Sajnahituhu, the one who is able to transcend this Sakti Chakra. That means he is beyond the controlling game of Maya. He is not troubled by Maya. You know, in kind of a, if you're a cricketer, I'm giving this example because it's easy to relate. So you're a smart bowler, batsman, and you are there. And the bowler comes and gives you a couple of outswingers. You already know, okay, the third, fourth, or fifth delivery is going to be a sharp off cutter, slow one, or an in swinger. You're already ready for it. Or it could be an in swinger bouncer. You're ready for it. So you are not troubled by him. You know he's trying to cheat me, and suddenly there'll be a ball which will turn towards me, and I'll be hell of a time. You already have to deal with it. Similarly, the guy who knows the game of the Shakti Chakra is not troubled by them. When he has any attachment, he's going somewhere, he's a monk, and some 3, 4 young, very powerful guys who come and say, Swamiji, we want to associate with you, this, that. He looks at them, he said, yeah, really? These boys and girls want to learn Shiva Sutra? Do they have the capacity? He probes further. He's not too excited about it. Or, for example, one insurance agent who comes and tells you that you're going to be very rich, and he will say that this policy you have to buy, and then you realize he is going to charge you a hell of a lot in terms of the service charges of investment. He's interested in his income, not necessarily your income. But he'll talk in a way to persuade you. The samsara is like that insurance agent or that investment banker, the advisor, who advises you not necessarily because he wants to see you very rich. He wants to be rich himself. And that's his job, to sell a certain belief. And that's what is going to help him. May help us, may harm us, and we are smart enough, then we would see through that kind of an advice. Similarly, whatever the sansara communicates to us, this particular jnani, because he has transcended, is not troubled by it, and therefore he becomes jnahetuhu. He becomes the cause of wisdom with which he can transform others' lives. Upadeshyan jnana saktya pratibodhaitum kshamaha. Pratibodhaitum. They might ask questions and he will explain to them. Anyastu Sakti Chakra Paratantri but others are victims of this whole game. A blind person cannot lead another blind person. Paratantri Swatmani Aprabha Vishnu. Prabha Vishnu means somebody who has got the Prabhavavan of Vishnu, that power of truth with him, the power of realization. But the others are Aprabha Vishnu, they don't have the power of realization. Katham anyan prabodhet. How can they enlighten others? They are not themselves enlightened. यद शब्दापेक्षया सूत्रे अत्र तत्शब्दो अध्यहार्यः. He's saying, yo abhipasto jnahetusya. The one who is abhipasta, he is the cause of jnana shakti. Cha sabdo hyarthe. Yo ayam abhipastah sah yasmat jnana prabodhana hetuhu. Tasmad yuktam muktam dhanam atmajnana. The one who is established in that stage beyond the gripping influence of these Maya and its game. It has a gripping power over us. The one who has escaped it and he has gone to the top, he is in a position, Jnana Prabodhana Hetuhu, he can enlighten us. Tasma, therefore, Yuktam, Uktam, it's very logically said. Where? In the previous sutra, and what was said to us? Jnanam Atma Jnanam. Dhanam Atmajnanam. What he gives us liberation. He gives us Atmajnanam. Iti. Okay. Now he's saying a refusal of another alternative interpretation. Quickly we'll go through it. Anyetu akshar sarupyat prabruyat iti nirukta sitya. There are different ways in which you can make interpretations. Okay. There are different ways you can make different kind of interpretations. And one of these interpretations, you have the Yajnika school. There's something called hermeneutics, or what are the signs of interpretation. Nobody teaches us. We straight away go into philosophy, which is Western philosophy. We do not necessarily all the time pay some attention to the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, or what is the Indian knowledge tradition. So in our knowledge tradition, there are different ways of interpreting Veda. One of them, which is Shayanacharya and others, is called Yajnika school. So he interprets everything. Like if you look at the great commentators, the Tantra Vartika and stuff like that, Kumarila Bhatta. So he is saying, what is the goal of Veda? To advise us doing certain yajna karmas. So mantras have to be correctly interpreted in the light of what activity is being suggested. They are not jnana paraka, they're generally karma paraka. So it's called yajnika school, ritualistic interpretation. Okay. The second one is aitihasika. So what they will do, they will look at how this emerged. It's called intellectual history. So they're kind of historians of these ideas. Then you have experts in Vyakarana. They will try to break that word. What does it mean in grammar? How can we make sense of it? They're grammarians. Okay. And they will use their skills in Vyakarana to unravel the meaning which is hidden in a certain mantra. But remember, they are essentially Sanskritists. They are using different kind of techniques of applying grammar rules to expose the meaning of a text. They're obsessed with that. The fourth one is Nirukta. Okay. The Nirukta guys, they are basically etymology school. They will try to, what is the root of this word? Where from it came? Let's go there. Okay. So you have Nirukta and Nirghantu. Yaska is the great author. He gives you some guidance of why this word is used and what is the root of this word. So that is the etymological interpretation. And then you have Parivrajakas. Parivrajakas are very intuitive. They are mystical. If you look at Sri Aurobindo's interpretation of the Vedas or the Upanishads, or Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahansa's certain comments on certain Vedic statements, they are not going in detail into what exactly is said. They would just try to intuitively say, this is what is in context, and that should be correct. So you have all these different schools of thought. Okay. Therefore, he's saying, Anyetu Akshara Sarupyat Prabriyat. Let's look at the alphabets and look at that Sarupya. What do they represent? And then break that sutra to make sense of it. This is a particular method, particular rule of interpretation. Looking at this in the Nirukta etymological school, what they are trying to sing, iti Nirukta Stitya. So they'll go through the Nirukta, Yoha iti Yogindraha. Yah Sabd Kyun Aaya, Yogindra. You'll find a lot of these people in especially Eastern India, Bengali intellectuals and sometimes Odia intellectuals, when they're dealing with Tantrika texts, They give their own novel interpretation. They are mostly parivrajaka, mystical interpretations, but many of them kind of rely on these etymological interpretations. So, yo abhipasta, so yo means yogindra, that means establish. V means Vijnanam, yo abhipasta, yo vipasta. There is a sandhi there. Pa iti padam, stha iti padastha, vipastha. Pa means padastha. So the person who is established in the state of being a yogindra in that way. Iti padastha iti asya antyam aksharam. So that is the last letter. Gya iti gyata, he iti heyaha. Gya hetuscha. That is the controversial aspect. Gya means gyata, the one who knows. Gya hetuscha. He means heya, tuchchata. Okay, he means heya. Gya hetuscha and tu means tuchchata. That is their interpretation. So what are they trying to reach there? Visarjaniyena visarga shaktihi. Visarga, you have this drabya dana in Bhagavan. It mentions what is karma shanchitaha. Visarga karma shanchitaha in Bhagavad Gita he mentions in the 8th chapter. You have this drabya dana, devata uddeshana drabya tyagaha. So he mentions that he's saying Visharjaniyena Visharga Saktihi Chakarena Anuktam अनुक्त समुचयार्थेन कर्ता परामर्श्यते. चकारण से जो बता नहीं रहे हैं, what is mentioning अनुक्त कर्ता जा रहा है, but this somebody who is going. So there is a anukta karta. आ जाइए means you come, but the sentence is please come over. Who is going to come over? You please come over. So that is anukta karta. Paramrshyate iti ashritya yo yogindra. And what is the total meaning? That yogindra vimarsha shaktya, with his wisdom, Swarupa Atma Vijnana Padastaha, he is established in the Swarupa Atma Vijnana, the wisdom of the self-awareness. Sa Jnata Karta Cha Avagantavyaha, he is both Jnata and a Karta. He is the knower and also the doer. Tadacha Asya Heyatam Tuchatam Nisaratam. He is saying, he knows everything. So he also knows how much of the sansara to be rejected. So with Kartribhava, he knows I am actually an useless person. If I'm thinking like this, and he knows that in Samvid Rupa, I'm the one establishing the truth. There's a bit of hair splitting here. Natu upadeyatam upadeyatam asadayati iti vyachakhyate. So it's not upadeya abitu heya iti vyachakhyate. Etacha na, this is not na, that means our pratibhati. This doesn't suit us. Padartha sangatehe nati charutvat. What is the padartha sangati? What are we discussing? Yo vivastha, that is what we are mentioning. Yo vipastha ज्ञान हेतुश्च. यहाँ पे अज्ञानता की बात, हेयता की बात कहाँ से आप ला रहे हैं? Why are you pulling this into your discussion? प्रतिसूत्रम च ईदृश व्याख्याक्रमस्य सहस्रशो दर्शयितुं शक्यत्वात्. So you cannot actually explain it. This is not sustainable. So this kind of a nirukta driven interpretation, etymological interpretation, Kshemaraja rejects, which is right in the order of the logic. This is not relevant. Okay. Now let's look at that finally. Yo vipasta gyahetuscha avin pasujanan पाति इति अविपम, उनको रक्षा करता है पशुजन का. महेश्वरादि शक्ति मंडलम कवर्गादि अधिष्ठात्रियः रश्मि रूपादिभ्यो भवन्ति. These are the person, these are rays of light. भवन्ति तासां प्रभुत्वेन यो दिव्यति अर्थात सर्वोयं मद विभव इति प्रतिविज्ञात स्वरूप स्वस्वरूप वैभवत्वात् सज्ञाहितुश्च. There is a beautiful interpretation. What is the meaning of swa? Swa means your own. Swarupa. Wherever this swa word is used, the wise interpreters tell us that swa you have to understand in the light of absolute knowledge. You don't have it, is your knowledge. You don't even exist without that Paramashiva. So everything you should relate to that Paramashiva consciousness. Swaswarupa. Swa first you say Paramashiva. Swarupa. What is his Lakshana? What is his Dharma? Swaswarupa Vaibhavatvat. This whole sansara is his own Vibhava, his own wealth. He has created all this. Bhagavan looks at his Leela and smiles. He doesn't say Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya. He doesn't have to say this. He just created it so he is Nirashakta, Nirvikara, but compassionate at the same time. And is there at the top of it. And in all of this, he's Vishwamaya and Vishwotirna. That is the beauty of the Shiva Sutra. Bhagavan is both immanent and transcendent. He's not above us. He's in all of us, and he's also above us because nothing can exist without him. Nothing has any reality without that pure supreme consciousness. Tasang prabhutvena yo divyati arthat sarvoyang madvibhava. Everything is my wealth iti prativigyata swaswarupa vaibhavatvat sa gya hetur bhavati. He becomes the cause of enlightenment, realization, and wisdom. Janati iti akhilamat jnana sakti parama swatantrata tasya hetuhu. How does he know everything? He's sarvagya. Because he is the ultimate consciousness who controls everything, who creates everything, everything gets dissolved in him. Therefore, tasya hetuhu labdhastitihi yogindraha swajnana saktya upadeshyan. He has to explain what is going on. Okay, so what's going on? You are a little confused. Where do you go? Who is the director of that play? He'll say, why this particular dialogue? He'll say, no, this is the purpose. Who is the director of this whole game of Sansara? Paramashiva. If you have to ask, who is going to tell you? He can tell you. And what is this Jnani? What is this Sadhaka? Who remembers everything and realizes himself and is established there? He is that particular person who is no different from Paramashiva. And therefore, he can quickly understand what's. All of us get confused. Why God is doing this to me? Why this is happening? Why am I troubled? Isn't God very kind to me? It's said that he is Paramakarunika, but he doesn't appear to be that. These are the problems we face, not the person who is become non-differentiable from that ultimate consciousness. Because he is no more differentiable. He's established in that Atma Tattva. Therefore, he can explain what's going on. Yogindraha Sogyana Saktya, with the power of his wisdom, Upadeshan, the one who deserves. Who is he? Mumukshu Purusha. Upadesha kaun hai? The one who wants liberation. Swatmanam pratibhijnapaitum cha nishchayana samurtho bhavati. He reminds them, don't you confuse yourself with your body and mind. Don't you think that you are weak? Don't you think that you are ill? Or you are rich or poor? These things don't have anything to do with you. He tells you about your Swarupa because he knows it for himself. Kivinga Pasupramatri Adhishtaneshu Maheshwaradi Matruka Sakti Chakreshu Tat Chakreshwaraha Atma Eva Praspurati. He is the Chakreshwara. That Parameshwara is the Chakreshwara. Is the, is that, he, of course, he is below the Paramashiva. That Chakreshwara Sthiti is below. But still, it's a very, very superior stage. Therefore, he's saying, then he's saying, Atma Jnana Pradane Asamarthastu, the one who cannot give you Atma Jnana, Sakti Mandalena Paratantri Kritattvataha, and he is troubled by this Sakti Tantra. He is himself a victim of Maya. What is he going to give you? You may be the chief manager of disaster management in a particular area, in a coastal district of Orissa or Bengal, and there is a cyclone, or in Andhra, and there's a cyclone, and then you don't know where is your wife and children. There's a super cyclone or something, you cut off from everywhere. People are saying, you are the boss of disaster management, give us relief, give us shelter. You're saying, I don't even know where's my wife and children. That is the state of the person who is still under the control of Maya. He doesn't have any clue. So Atmani Eva Asamarthaha, he is himself incapable. San Param Katham Pratibhijnapayet. How can he remind others of what is the truth? He himself doesn't know it. Ateva yo avipastha bhavati sa eva atmajnana pradani hetur bhavati. The person who is actually the master of the Shakti Chakra, he's established there. He alone can transform others by communicating the truth. Tataha eva jnanam atmajnana jnanam iti purva sutrena sadhu gatita. How beautiful it has been said. The proof of what I am telling you as interpretation of this sutra, you can make sense of by relating to the previous sutra, where it says Dhanam Atmagyanam. The Parama Shiva, the person who is established in that Parama Shiva sthiti, can definitely transform your lives. Okay. Now, there are one critical thing to remember here, that it's not necessarily a theoretical or intellectual exposition of that sutra, because that is not what is Atmagyan. We are, for example, what we are discussing, this satsang, it's a means for reaching Atmagyana. Listening to it, you don't get Atmagyana, you don't get liberated. Yeah, but it's very important. Dasama Tvamasi. So there is the story in Vedanta comes again and again. You have paroksha jnana, then you have aporoksha jnana. You have first verbal knowledge, testimonial knowledge, and then you meditate on it and you understand what it means. So there were these 10 guys who had gone on a picnic, taking permission of the wife of the acharya, of the teacher. They crossed over a certain river and went to the other side, some temple where there was a big feast. While coming back, once they got off this boat, the the mentor, the monitor of this group of boys started counting others. He reached till 9. And who is the 10th? He doesn't know. He thought somebody has got drowned in water. And he asks the sailor, did you drown somebody? He says, no, boys. And he counts. He says, yeah, all of you are 10. You were 10 in the beginning. You are 10 now. And these boys are slowly coming back to their ashram, their hostel, a boarding school, where they first meet the mother of the acharya. She was the caretaker those days. He said, most likely we lost somebody in water. She looks at them and counts and says, no, no, you are 10. Come have food. Wash your hands and legs. They feel a little reassured, but they don't understand what it means, because the monitor is still convinced they're 9 because he can count up to 9 only. And then what happens? They go to the acharya. After the dinner is over, he says, sir, it seems somebody has got drowned. The sailor. And our mother here, the matron, they believe that we are 10, but I'm counting it's 9. The Acharya smiles and says, Dasama Tomasi, you are the 10th one. You're counting 10, 9, and then who is the 10th one? You are the 10th one. But he feels a little happy because the Acharya is saying this, but he still has a few doubts. Then he goes, he feels assured, but he keeps on meditating on it on his bed. And then he's depressed, he sleeps, and he gets up in the morning. Then suddenly it flashes in his brain, Dasama Tvamasi. Oh, I'm the 10th one. That's what Acharya was saying. So he's very happy and tells everyone nobody has got drowned. And then let's go for breakfast. They're very happy. He's elated again. Similarly, when somebody says Tattvamasi, you are that. Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma. These are the Mahavakyas. The Guru tells you you are not different. Jivatma eva Paramatma. We don't believe it because we have economic problems, we have emotional problems, we have health problems, and somebody says we are not different from God. Isn't going to give us a lot of arrogance if we are from the devotional tradition. We have a lot of problem. But then after a lot of meditation, we realize that the purpose of this statement is in fact to realize that we cannot exist without the supreme consciousness called God. And therefore we are part of the whole truth. And we are that truth. There's nothing called a physical isolation. Okay? Therefore, this is how it happens. This particular truth, the one who has realized this truth, doesn't have to go into details of giving you a long academic lecture. Can sometimes transfer it to you in a sharp, quick way. Yobapasa Jyahetusha. That is what the sutra mentions. It talks about that particular very mystical way of transforming wisdom and the power of realization by the acharya to the guy who deserves. It's not given to all. Even if it is given, they will not make sense of it. If you give it a certain password to a little boy and he says, do you know this is millions of dollars, this is the password for your cryptocurrency, what does that boy do? He doesn't know what is cryptocurrency, what is password, how to operate a computer. He doesn't have any idea. It's going to make no sense to him. You have to find out who can actually work on that truth. Then he will be able to benefit from it. That is what is conveyed here. Let's go to the Next one, and these two sutras are interrelated and trying to take up them together. Swasakti prachuyasya vishwam, and asya yoginaha, of that atmagyanavan purushaha, of him, swasakti prachayaha, its expansion of his energy. Swa, as I told you, if you take that as the Parama Shiva Shakti, then you will have less problem understanding what he's saying. Otherwise, you may have a slightly erroneous explanation saying that the yogi can actually manifest a reality, because that is how the commentaries have been written. That is how the linguistic interpretation of it, the textual interpretation, kind of hints at putting the Yogindra at a very high pedestal. But I keep saying that this is Sutyartha. When we are in that Parama Shiva consciousness or the Brahma consciousness, Brahmakara Vritti, you might say that everything is mine and there's nothing which exists without me, and that is something which might tempt others to believe that you have got mentally crazy. But that is a higher level of truth that you are experiencing, which you cannot explain to them. We have to put it in a certain context. Therefore, he's saying, Yataha ayam sivatulya uktaha tataha yatha sakteya asya jagada krishnam. This is, Bhatta Kalata in the Vritti is saying, because he sivatulya jayate, that is the sutra we have done. He becomes comparable with Parama Shiva. He is not yet Shiva because he will become Shiva when he drops his body. There is certain limitation. Some Agyanalesha, as they mention in Vedanta. Shivatulya uktaha tataha yatha saktayaha asya jagata krishnam. This whole sansara is an expansion of his energies. Of the yogi? Really? No, because the yogi is no more different from Paramashiva. He's in that absolute consciousness, and therefore he sees everything as a creation of Lord Shiva and doesn't see himself as any different from Lord Shiva. It's not an egoistic superimposition of the truth about supreme consciousness creating this whole samsara as himself. That will be beginning of a big leap into ignorance. That's not the purpose of it. Iti Anmaya Drishtya, in the light of this truth, Sivasya Vishwam Swasaktimayam. What is the sansara? Of the Paramashiva, that supreme consciousness, this sansara is an expansion of his Ichha Sakti, Jnana Sakti, and Kriya Sakti that we have already discussed. Shaktimayam. Tatha asyapi swasyaha samvidatmanaha shaktihe prachayaha. Exactly like that. I tell you, this is the source of the tempting confusion that he becomes like Shiva, he can create anything. But that's not the goal of this sentence. Tatha asyapi, asyapi means yoginaha api swasyaha, apna samvid atmanaha. That particular samvidatma that he is pure consciousness, saktehi prachayaha, expansion of the energies, kriya saktihi, spurana rupa vikaso vishwam. This sansara is kriya sakti spurana. That pulsating spanda, that vibration. This whole sansara is nothing other than that divine vibration of Paramashiva. That is how he looks at it. But if he still retains that ego, he can never be Sivatulya Jayate. He can never reach that stage. So let's first look at the last commentary, and then we'll come back to Kshemaraja. So Krishnananda Acharya will look at his very simplistic, and he sort of touches upon everything. Sampratam, now Jnana Sakti Hetuho Asya Yoginah Vishwakaratvam iti Pratipadyate. Vishwa Akaratvam. Aham Vishwam, I am everything. As a body? No, as supreme consciousness. Is he any more aware of himself as an ego consciousness? No. He has abandoned his ego, he is established in the Paramashiva consciousness, and he realizes that this whole sansara is an expansion of his Kriya Sakti. Pratipadyate so Sakti Prachuho Asya Vishwam. His expansion, that itself the sansara. Saktischa Saktimangsha Padartha Dvayamuchyate. Bhagavan also mentions, right? Prakritim, Maya and a Maheshwara. Okay, Bhagavan says, you understand Mainam to Maheshwaram. Who is the master of this Maya? Mainam to Maheshwara. He is the master of this Maya Shakti. He is the boss of it. Similarly, he's saying Saktischa Saktimangsha Padartha Dvaimuchyate. There are two realities, you can say, Sakti and Shaktiman. And they are always indifferentiable. Lord Radha and Krishna, they're indifferentiable. Shiva and Shakti, indifferentiable. We have to understand that secret. Saktaya Asya Jagat Krishnam Saktimangshu Maheshwaraha. And what are his Sakti? Parvati Ma, Durga Ma? No, not that way. Of course, there are different symbolic ways in which you can worship his Shaktis to ascend to higher planes. But by Shakti, he's saying that creative energy that he has is Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, with which the Sansara has manifested. Jagat Krishnam, all of it, nothing is independent of his Maya Shakti, this creative power he has. Shakti belongs to Maheshwara. And the Maheshwara is the boss of the Shaktis. Iti uktanayena, by the logic of the statement, yatha anuttara dhamno bhagavataha paramashivasya jagadidam swasakti prachayaha asti iti pratipaditam. This world exists. What does it mean? It essentially means that the supreme creative energy of the God, of the Lord, the supreme Shiva consciousness has manifested. That is what we refer to as asti. It is there. That isness is that Paramashiva consciousness. Evam asyapi jnananishta yogindrasya, and also the jnananishta yogendra, the one who is into self-realization, swasyaha swasambedana atmanaha. Swasambedana atmanaha, that self-awareness, that awareness which is characterized by complete self-awareness, saktehe, of his energy, prachayaha, jagan nirmana samarthyam kriya sakti spuranatmaka क्रियास शक्ति स्फुरणात्मक आदि विकासो विश्व भवति. Kriya Sakti Spuranatmaka. This is an adjective to mention how this particular expansion of this energy happens. It is his creative energy which manifests in this samsara. And what is that? This is Vikasha Prachaya. Swasakti Prachaya means Vikasha. Is an expansion of that willpower of God, of his energy, which is having intuition or Icha Shakti and Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. Vishwam Bhavati, Etasmin Vishwe Asmini Paridrushyamananam Vedya Vastu Vetrina. So you have Vedya Vastu and Vetta, the knower and the known. In this whole sansar, there is a duality. When you describe something that it exists, there is somebody who describes it, right? And there was this particular piece which Sanat Mishraji shared. We'll go into that. Vedya and Vetri, what is to be known and what knows. Vetrinam Ullekhana Rupa Kriya Sakti Swatantrena Eva Abhivyakti Bhavati Yathokta Pratyavijnayam. What is mentioned in the Pratyavijna Hridaya, he is now quoting. Vartamana Abhavhasanam. These are not real appearance. It's a kind of abhavasa. It appears. It's a projection. Bhavanam abhavashanam. This is an appearance of these realities. Bhava padarthas. What exists? We say this exists. That is an antastita vasad. Antastita vatam eva. Now, you see, you have a certain willpower. There is a sankalpa, and then you realize it. You convert that into a project paper, and then you do that project. So first, that knowledge is there in you as a sankalpa shakti, and then you elaborate. It becomes a blueprint, becomes a project proposal, and then you do it, and you get results. Similarly, that sankalpa shakti is what is internal to that Shiva consciousness, and when that manifests, that becomes bahista. That is what is external reality. So there is no clear distinction or disjunction between what is consciousness and what is material reality, because the material reality is essentially a projection of that internal pure consciousness. That is what is being conveyed here. Vartamana avabhasanam bhavanam avabhasanam antastita batam eva, what is existing inside, ghatate vahiratmana, and they appear outside. A person has a few thoughts and then he does it. Similarly, chidatmeva hi devantah stitam ichha vasad vahi. Because that particular chidatma, that pure consciousness, the Chaitanya Swarupa, with his antaravashana, antaricha, anta stitam, icha vashad, you have that icha sakti, result which bahi, this external reality manifests. Yogi va nirupadanam arthajatam prakashayet. Sometimes what happens is these yogis have a lot of supramental powers. They can materialize an apple out of nothing, right? They have some occult powers. Lord Shiva is the master of all these games, so he can create. You call it Shiva Maya or Vishnu Maya, whatever. He can materialize. So his own consciousness and that particular Ichha Shakti and Jnana Shakti, they convert into Kriya Shakti and this whole samsara manifests. Ateva Chidatma Eva Tattad Akar Prakarihi Vahir Anta Prakashate. That pure consciousness itself is what we distinguish and separate or analyze and distinguish as internal and external. This is a material reality, this is pure consciousness. Tattad rupataya jnanam bahir antah prakasate. Tattad rupataya. Depending on that Ichha Shakti, what forms it takes. And therefore you say it's internal and it's external. Jnanad rite nartha satta. This is the most important thing, which has something to do with quantum mechanics and quantum physics. And there are some people who are also, that reality is observer dependent. Of course, there are some people who have become very critical of this kind of a theory of quantum physics. They're saying these people have been lying to us. There are some recent criticisms which have emerged. Tattad rupataya jnanam bahirandha prakasate jnanad rite nartha satta. There is no reality without an observer. There is some jnana, then only you say there is a box. If there is no one, can you say there was a box? What do you mean? How did you verify? Any truth proposition has to be verified. To be verified, there should be somebody who is seeing it. There has to be an observer. Without this jnana, it doesn't exist. But you see, now you will say, how does jnana happen? If artha is not there, how can you have artha vishaka jnana? If you don't have a box, how do you have knowledge of the box? If you look at a box, you say this is a box. So what is primary? The box is primary. The external material object is the primary. That is the traditional position of Western philosophy. Reality is external and autonomous of our consciousness. That is how you will. That is the positivistic outside, whole approach. Otherwise, the reality will keep changing depending on how you look at it, and that is why quantum physics comes in. So he's saying, Jnanadrite Nartha Satta, the Artha Satta, the material existence. The proof of anything's existence actually lies in, are we aware of it? Now they will beautifully solve it. You may have that Anunya Shraya Dosha. You have a regression. You don't know who precedes what. That problem comes philosophically. He's trying to answer that in this way. Nartha satta jnana rupam tatoha jagat. Therefore, this whole sansara is not different from jnana. It's jnana rupa. Nahi jnana driti bhavaha kenachid vishayikritaha. Without knowledge, how can you say this thing exists? How can they be the object of your knowledge? If you don't know, you have jnana, then only you say it exists. Jnanam tadatmatam yatam etasmad avasiyate. Jnanam tadatmatam jat. That jnana itself takes the form of that material reality. That is what is explaining. Arthat nila mukhadi rupina antara bahya vavasamananam. Something is blue, something is white, whatever is appearing in your mind and in external reality, all that. Bhavanam avabhasa. Sara Rupatvad, they are all essentially projections of your mind. Tad anya vetireka anuvidhaitvena bhinnam satana vidyate. You cannot distinguish between, it comes very close to the Vijnanavada of the Kshanika Vijnanavada of the Buddhists, comes very close to it. Because they say nothing exists, it's all knowledge. It comes very close to it. But you know what certain commentators have mentioned, and we will also look at it in the next sutra. They are essentially trying to say that it happens simultaneously. It happens simultaneously. What exists, that material reality and its jnana. It's not one preceding the other. Then you don't have any problem philosophically. Now, how can it happen simultaneously? You have to have a karya karana bhava. You have to say that one precedes the other. You cannot have anything existing without a cause for it. That is one limited way of understanding, because God's creative power, both the things happen at the same time. Can you say, when you say this is this is a snake, this is a snake. Now, the knowledge of the snake and the snake, which precedes the other? The snake is not even real. You have sarpa jnana. It happens. The sarpa exists, this knowledge happens only if you have sarpa jnana. Because the one who sees this as a non-sarpa, as a non-snake, he's not having the sarpa jnana. That means the snake doesn't exist. Where do they start? Do they one thing precedes the other? He says not necessary. They happen at the same time. Because that doesn't have any real existence of its own, independent of, in a way which is autonomous, which is separable from that jnana. That is how they explain it. Okay. Now, if you look at the Kshemaraja, more or less the same thing is being mentioned there. Ityadi, Anamaya Drishya, Amnaya Drishya, in the light of these texts, Vishwasya Vishwam Swasaktimayam, Shivasya Vishwam. This Vishwa is Siva Swasaktimaya, it's full of his own power, creative energy. Tata Asyapi Swasyaha Samidatmanaha Shaktehe Prasayaha Kriyasakti Spurna Rupa Vikasho Vishwam Yaduktam Sri Mrityajiti. That Mrityajit, particular thing we have been referring to again and again. Now, Mrityajit Bhattaraka writes that famous book called Netra Tantra. Okay. So, in the sloka number 12, Bhagavan is explaining to Parvati, Yato Jnanamayo Deva Jnanam Sha Bahudastitam. The Deva, the Ishvara who creates, his Jnanamaya, is an embodiment of knowledge. Jnanam Sha Bahudastitam. The Jnana appears in different forms. Niyantritanam Baddhanam Tranam Atra Tat Netra Muchyate. Netra Tantra. This is the book. Do you know what is Netra here? It's not physical eye of Lord Shiva. Netra here means that light of wisdom, that light of awareness. Niyantritanam, those who are controlled by this game of Maya, Baddhanam, they are the ones who are caged, who are bonded laborers of Maya. Tranam Netra Muchyate. Their liberation is Netra of Lord Shiva. That Trityanayana. It destroys. What does it destroy? Our ignorance. And there's a beautiful soothing commentary of it. Devaha Parameshwaraha. Who is Deva? Parameshwaraha. Jnanamaya Shinamatra Paramarthaha. Jnanamaya Paramarthaha. Parama Arthaha. Sha also. So he is that Paramartha, is the ultimate reality, and it is Jnanamaya. It's a bundle of wisdom and reality. It's not a material reality. That was the question, Sanat Mishraji, if you look at that. They are the neuroscientists and a lot of positivists. They try to see consciousness as an aspect of the brain, and they are trying to isolate different parts of the brain as the mother of consciousness. What Vedanta says, consciousness here is not a process associated with the brain, because for us everything is conscious. Can you say the trees and plants don't have any consciousness? The stones and the rivers don't have any consciousness? Sri Aurobindo says every damn particle in the universe is conscious. Everything is conscious. Everything in a micro meaning way represents the divine intuition and will of the Supreme Lord. It's very close to the Kashmiri Saivism. So, Tatsya Jnanam Bahuda iti Swatantriyat Sankocham Abhashya. What is he saying? Jnanam Bahuda in different forms? Because he's also sometimes that Shiva becomes Pasupati, becomes Pashu. That unlimited, infinite wisdom becomes limited understanding of us. Are we different from Shiva when we are having these confusions? No. Same Shiva Shakti in different ways it manifests it. That Matru Shakti, that supreme energy of Ma Kali, she can delude us, she can liberate us. She one going to help us, she's the one who's going to bind us. Sankocham Abhasya. Bhagwan is playing Atma Gopanatmika Krida. It's a game of hiding oneself. Therefore, he's saying Sankocham Avasya, this Sankochana, this limitation, is just an appearance. Nanatvam Ashritya Sthitam, then he becomes one, becomes many. That supreme consciousness becomes rivers and plants and trees and different nationalities, and white people and brown people and black people and animals and birds. One thing becomes many. अतश्च संकोच अवभास भाजो ये हे निगृहित स्वस्वरूपतया. These people who are understanding, they are realizing that this is sankocha abhavasa, this is a faulty appearance. Ye nigrihita swaswarupataya niyandrita abhasita devena tata eva bodha baddhaha. The one who consider this particular abhavashana or shankuchana of that Paramashiva Shakti, which is limitless, they are the ones who become bonded lepers of Maya. They are the ones who feel helpless. They are the ones who are captured in the cobweb of the game of Maya. Because they are considering this real. They don't know it's magic. There is some fun going on, and you have your aunts who have come home and they are teasing you. Where is my mom? Oh, your mom. She ran away. You don't know this? Where? Oh, she became a monk. She's left. And the baby cries. Why the baby cries? Because the baby thinks I have lost my mom. Mom is next door. She's just hiding there playing a game. So when we do not know this self-concealment of Paramashiva, we feel deluded, we feel helpless when we are in an experience of troubled consciousness. That itself is a faulty appearance. There we are baddhaha, tesham nana darshana upasadivihi. And then there are different kind of darshanas and different kind of upasanas. You do this puja, you do that. Swaswarupa pratha hetutaya yato devah tranam. God then lifts their consciousness by somebody will do some Tantra sadhana, somebody will do Vaishnava sadhana, somebody will do Hanuman Smarana, somebody will do yoga, somebody will do Jnana yoga. Bhagavan will look at what is the capacity of this boy or girl and then slowly turn that person towards him. अतएव बद्धः तेषां नाना दर्शन उपासादिभिः स्वस्वरूप प्रथा हेतुतया यतः देवः त्राणम. Therefore he is the त्राणकर्ता, that नेत्र तंत्र. तस्मात् निरुक्त दृशा नेत्र मुच्यते. That is why it's called netra, God's eye. God looks at us, we are liberated. Why? He transfers that knowledge to us. Natu chakshur gologataya is not God's physical eye. First thing, he's not a physical being. Lord Shiva doesn't have a physical body. Even though we go to Shiva Lingam and do puja, this is pratika upasana. Shiva Linga, Shiva Buddhi, or you have that Salagrame, Vishnu Buddhi. These are for pratika upasana, but they are beyond all that. And then, evam sarvagato deva bahurupa manir yatha. You know the diamond? It looks like black and green and this and that, right? This whole color spectra, it emanates, but it doesn't have any of the colors. Sarve aradhito devi swasiddhi phalavanchaya. Bhagavan says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. Ye yathamam prapadyante. The way a person looks for me, I appear to him in the same form. And Bhagavan says lot of aradhanas are there. And then in order to have the knowledge of the Supreme Lord Shiva Tattva, we lift him, I guide him towards his own status, his own state of mind, his sadhana, antakarana suddhi. Gradually will go. Sarveshang phaludo devaha pratitartha vidhayakaha sarveshang phaladaha devaha. He gives phala to everybody. Everybody is not looking for Atmajnana. Somebody wants a house, somebody wants car, somebody wants a relationship, somebody wants freedom, somebody wants fame. He gives them depending on what Papa Punya he has, what sadhana they do. Tasmad bhavanurupena sadhaka sadhane stita. Depending on what kind of thing you are doing, accordingly the sadhaka is seated in his own asana of siddhi. Yena yene vebhamena tasya tat phalado bhavet. The way you do sadhana, accordingly you will get some siddhis. You cannot be studying physics and then will become a poet. You study literature and you become a chemist. No, these things are not going to happen. Yaha sadashiva rupena sada dhyayati sadakaha. The one who turns to me and looks at me as Sadashiva. Bhagavan also says the same. Sadashiva tanu tasya bhavativa sureshwari. His body, tanu, his swarupa becomes non-differentiable from me. It becomes same as me. And sarvastha yesha sarva anugraha karakaha. He is the anugraha. He's had the panchakrityas. Sthiti, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. And then what? He also kind of hides everything. And then he also does anugraha. He hides everything, he reveals everything. These are the panchakrityas. Sadhyo Vama, he adhosya, Purusheshana Vigraha, Purusha Ishana Vigraha, Sadhyo Vama. And all these are ways in which you are trying to relate to the Paramashiva Tattva. And then this is how these Swasakti Prachu